Whitechapel has a new album that came out last weekend, and everyone's been saying it's their heaviest album to date. It's a big contrast from their last two albums, which were more experimental. So my goal for this video is to see if this change was a good idea or not. So if you didn't know, Whitechapel is a very popular deathcore band from Tennessee. They started out in the year 2006. They have a total of 9 studio albums, but for today's video, I'm going to focus on the last 3, but mostly on a new one called Hymns of Dissonance that was released on March 7, 2025 through Metal Blades Records. And I discovered this band sometime around 2019 when they released their album called The Valley. That was their 7th studio album. This one shows them going to more of an experimental direction. There's a little bit of groove metal, melodic death metal, some different stuff. It's a concept album. So for example, the track Hickory Creek has these atmospheric sounds and orchestration. There's a track called Third Depth, which sounds more like progressive metal. But it wasn't a very big departure compared to the next album. Then in 2021, they released the album Kin. This was the same type of thing, a continuation of the previous album, a concept album. It was very experimental. There were some acoustic tracks, a lot going on. So let me give you a few examples. One example, the track Orphan, which has clean vocals and sounds like something you would hear from a melodic doom metal band like Catatonia. Then there's the title track Kin, which sounds like an acoustic ballad, which is something you wouldn't expect to hear on a deathcore album. So that brings us to the new album, Hymns and Dissonance. So what I'm going to do is go through the album, talk about the tracks, say what I like, say what I don't like. At the end of the video, I give my final thoughts and score, and I determine if it was a good idea to go back to their older sound, or I will say if they should have continued to explore the progressive sound of the previous 2 albums. So let me get into it. The opening track is called Prisoner 666. At first you hear clean guitars, so you might be thinking it's a continuation of the last 2 albums with those progressive sounds, but that's not the case with this. After about the first minute, you hear some bigger guitar riffs, some powerful drums, but then 30 seconds later, you hear Whitechapel sounding just like they did in the old days, with pummeling, heavy guitar riffs, and low guttural vocals. There's some creepy guitar sounds in the background. That just adds to the fullness of the sound. Song has everything and just different vocal styles. There's low gutturals, higher fry screams, and powerful blast beat drumming. After this is the title track, and it's just this big wall of heaviness. This one has a music video, which is a performance inside a cave or something like that. And there'll be another music video like that later on that I'll talk about. You hear deep gutturals and blast beats, and it comes at you pummeling. I also noticed there is some hardcore style vocals. Song has one of those big, powerful breakdowns that you would expect to hear from a deathcore band. The ending is intense. It closes at a slow crawl, so they show you they don't need to move at breakneck speeds all the time. Thought the first 2 tracks were good, but so far the album starts off with a 1-2 punch of 2 strong tracks to kick off the album. Then it was Diabolic Slumber. The first thing I heard were some traditional metal style guitar chords. Then they came at me with some more blast beats. They also continue with these really thick and chunky guitar riffs. I found myself banging my head to this, and it was just as heavy as the first 3. I like it when they put in these quiet, suspenseful sections because you don't know what's going to happen. So I like that part. After this is a song called Visceral Wretch. It has a music video, it was really cool. Takes place inside this cave, and they show you these silhouettes of some kind of spider creature. So that's really cool. The song's a continuation of the sound. So I am 4 tracks into this album. I haven't really heard them experiment too much. But as I watched the video, I listened to the sound, and I noticed the creature's not really a spider creature. It's more of an antelope. It probably has something to do with the concept. I didn't really investigate that too much. I wanted to focus more on the music. So after this is a 1-minute instrumental called Ex Infernus. And it was a good idea to put a short track as track number 5 because it's right in the middle. It divides the album. It gives the listener a break. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's kind of a way for the listener to catch their breath. This goes into track 6, called Hate Cult Ritual. This one has a music video, and the music video looks like it's in the middle of a forest, but it's hard to really tell because it's very dark. But all I know is there's some type of fight club going on, and these guys are playing the music, and it's another pretty cool video, another good song. They continue with heavy, pummeling deathcore sounds. Now, at this point in the album, there are 4 tracks left. I'm still on the fence whether I think it's a good idea for them to go back to the heavy sound. Because on the one hand, it's pretty cool hearing heavy riffs, but on the other hand, the album's a little bit kind of the same, but I'll discuss that more at the end. Track number 7 is called The Abysmal Gospel, and this one is still pretty heavy. I thought it was a little slower, but then the vocals kick in, the songs take off with brutal vocals and blast beats and guitar riffs, so I'm still enjoying this. After this is a song called Bedlam, and I like this one a lot. It's the shortest track, not counting the instrumental. It's 3.5 minutes and probably sounds a little closer to traditional death metal, but still has that deathcore sound. Seems to be simple, but still very heavy, and I liked it. The penultimate track is called Mammoth God, and the intro is kind of quiet. Seems like they're building up to something. I start to wonder, did they throw in an alternative track as the second to last track? But as I hear the signature sound creep in, the answer is no, it's more of that traditional deathcore sound. Although there was a slight departure because the guitar solo kind of reminded me of some classic heavy metal, but otherwise they didn't really stray from their formula. The last track is called Nothing Is Coming for Any of Us. It's the longest track, it's 6 minutes and 12 seconds long. It starts off like any typical deathcore song. The song length made me wonder if they're going to go into some weird experimental direction at some point in the runtime, or are they going to keep it just straightforward deathcore? I get to the 3-minute mark of the song, and they go into a guitar part. Sounds a little alternative, but it was short-lived, and they return to the heavy, pummeling sound. And they follow this up with a guitar solo, which was pretty melodic in my opinion. And the last minute of the song kind of stretched out a little bit, so it was more of a melodic, atmospheric sound, so I would say a little bit of experimentation here. So now, it's time for me to make my final verdict. Was the return to a heavier sound a good idea? Now I thought of it. Because on the one hand, there's kind of a sameness throughout all the songs, so it's kind of hard for me to pick out my favorite songs. But on the other hand, I like all of them equally, so that's not a bad thing, because it's a type of album I enjoyed as a full experience, as opposed to just picking out songs. So my final verdict is going to be yes, it was a good idea to go back to the heavy sounds. And I think it's because deathcore, by definition, is a subgenre of a subgenre, so I don't think they need to be mixing other stuff in there too much. Now, granted, there was a little bit of experimentation, but it wasn't too much. It was just the right amount. So I reiterate, it was a good idea to go back to the heavier sounds, and my score is going to be 8 out of 10. So that is all. At this time, I usually refer you to one of my older reviews of an old review I did of this band, but I didn't do any Whitechapel reviews in the past. So I'm going to put something here that's maybe related or something, a new release. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please give the video a like. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next one.